Hey everyone, happy Monday. Excited for this conversation today, particularly in light of the RSA conference that starts today. We're going to talk all things cybersecurity with Dark Cryptonite, not just another cybersecurity technology in the long list of technologies. Really excited to chat. Hi, Tyler.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about this.
As am I. And you're going to have to educate me a little bit because I'm a traditional old school security guy. And you have a rather non traditional approach to building the world's first digital fortress. And of course, Dark Kryptonite sounds very intriguing. It's not a superhero. So you're going to have to explain what Dark Cryptonite is and tell us a little bit about yourself and your long
Okay.
career in security as well.
I think that should go first because that'll sort of explain why Dark Cryptonite. So
Right.
my background in cybersecurity is mostly working for the U.S. Department of Defense. I started off doing forensics for the defense for the DoD in their cybercrime lab, intrusion, major crimes cases. But then I went to the Defense Intelligence Agency, and my job there was kind of the opposite. Um, I worked with special comms, and special comms, think of if you have a very high risk mission in a high risk area, you need for your devices to look and feel like they're supposed to, but at the same time, they have to have alternate channels and methods of communicating in and out. And it's a very out of the box and it's kind of a very weird way of thinking, but it's looking at a problem and finding out how you can break it and put it back together in a way that sort of makes sense. And so fast forward a little bit, and so that's really what I did. Then I started doing a lot of keynote presentations, and I've been doing this for a long time, and you know, I have kind of a gift, I guess, as a futurist, where I can sort of tell what's going to be the next thing. Like, for example, I was one of the first people in forensics to talk about alternate data storage as things that can contain evidence, such as thumb drives, phones, and this was all even before the iPhone. So
Hmm.
it's an interesting way of kind of thinking. But in 2016 or even 2018, if you would have said to me, what is the biggest problem with cybersecurity today? I would have said cybersecurity awareness training really has to find a way to get people to understand what the risks are and how to really mitigate those risks. But I don't necessarily believe that anymore because
Mm.
I know that a lot of the statistics, a lot of the papers that I've been reading, they say things along the lines of 76% of companies polled said they expect to be hacked within the next 12 months. That tells me we're not winning at all. And I don't know about you, but I get at least five phishing attempts a day in various forms. And I started also noticing that a lot of the CISOs or CEOs that I was talking to, they seemed kind of depressed and sort of like they don't really know what to do anymore because it seems as if the problem is so out of control. And that's kind of where I started because I started thinking, wait a minute, this is just not working. And I sort of realized, well, we're using the internet, which was never designed to be secure. And we're putting bandages on a gaping hole, which is fine for a lot of the traffic that we have. But for really sensitive information that is really vital to your company, those transactions have to be secure. And the problem is if you have a public facing IP address, everybody knows where you live. All the hackers know where you are. And you can't necessarily, you can change the IP address, but it's really hard to do that. and it takes time. But and that's kind of one of the issues. People are going to continue trying to break into those traditional internet services. But I thought a lot about it and I started researching the bad guys, and I realized that they're actually winning because they're using special comms. And I started thinking, I'm like, well, why don't we do that? So I came up with this concept for Dark Cryptonite, and I got in touch with who are now my two partners, and we've built this product. And I have to say, Evan, of all the things I've done in my career, this is the one I'm the most proud of. It
Oh, that's so exciting. Well,
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank
And tell us about your approach because it is different than traditional encryption technologies, and it's hard to explain in layman's terms for someone like myself. But do your best. How is it different, better than the present status quo?
So we're not using the traditional internet. So what we're doing is you connect to a hash, and that is where you store. That is where your data is. And inside of the Dark Kryptonite network, there's a lot of different nodes that will send traffic in different directions. It's also, for storage. It's in this. It's think of it as everywhere and nowhere because it is not on the internet. And if you do this, you're able to really control access to who has access to what files. Um, we also have the ability within Dark Kryptonite, and I think of medical because that's kind of the lane I like to be in. Um, I know that a lot of times if you have to send records from, one doctor sending to
Hmm.
another, or anything that has to be done on the traditional internet, if you
Or
do
on a CD-ROM or a
it
floppy drive, sadly. But yes, we'll stick to the internet for purposes of our discussion.
But if you are doing this in Dark Kryptonite, you can actually email another company information, and you're never touching the public internet, never. So it takes you kind of down into just a different methodology where, since you're connecting to hashes, if you feel a hash has been compromised, you can just change it. It takes less than 30 seconds. So it also, when you think about things like BEC, the business email compromise, where someone will pretend to be a CEO, or someone who has the authority to have the finance people send money to an account. And this happens a lot. With Dark Kryptonite, that can't happen because even if the hackers are using Chat GPT to change their voice to sound exactly like the CEO, if they're not on Dark Kryptonite, it's not going to work
Hmm.
because with Dark Kryptonite, you have this path where you're able to communicate with each other and you're not even on the internet. And that's where a lot of the important decisions, or executives and board members can really communicate. But it's also a place to kind of house your most secure stuff, your crown jewels, as they say.
Well, it's super, super exciting, and it sounds like a perfect technology for the DoD and those three-letter agencies. But you're actually talking about commercial use cases
Yes.
as well. So, how accessible is the technology? Do you need to have a PhD in,
No,
cryptology, computer science to use it?
not at all, not at all. It 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 will look and feel like what you're used to. So you will notice there may be some differences. You're not going to be able to use the internet when you're inside of Dark Kryptonite. But for the average user, it just looks and feels like what they're
Hmm.
used to. And it's extremely easy to set up. It takes about 30 seconds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
And the internet, for me, it's video communications, it's messaging and chat, it's email, it's data sharing and file sharing. And it sounds like I could do all of that within Dark Kryptonite.
you sure can. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And you can also email large files to other. other people with inside of Dark Cryptonite. Even if they don't have Dark Cryptonite, you can give them temporary access to where you want them to go. So it really is. And there are some things that the traditional internet, there are things that don't really necessarily have to be secured. Like if I'm pulling down, the latest episode of Vanderpump Rules, that's not something that really needs to
You've given away your viewing habits
Oh my
here,
God, I
so
have.
be careful.
I meant Below Deck or no. Sorry, I really like those reality shows. They're awesome. But yeah, so if I'm watching that streaming, that doesn't really matter. But if it's a merger, if it's a bank, if it's financial transactions, or if it's a pharmaceutical company with intellectual property, anywhere where you need to have information that you can use to communicate. We have chat, we have video function. It works somewhat like Zoom, just doesn't have the fancy filters yet. Um, you're able to do that. So
So why did it take so long for someone like yourself to come along and think about a brand new greenfield alternative approach to security? Is it just we have too much vested in, the current paradigm, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a lot invested in the current paradigm, and we're not necessarily saying to jump away from that paradigm for things that you don't have to have completely secured, but for everything else, you do. And for me, the reason that it took me, a long time to kind of come up with this is because I really, until things started to get out of control, right after COVID, I didn't necessarily think that we needed something like this. But then the attacks got so much more sophisticated because back then it seemed like, especially like in 2016 to 18, it seemed like things were much better controlled.
Hmm.
Cybersecurity awareness was really taking care of a lot of the issues that we had, plus the technology. But when things just got really bad and when hospitals started getting broken into, that's kind of where I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to turn my attention and I'm going to figure out this problem because I'm actually an inventor. And I have an analytical mind and, I piece things together in my head and I see the finished product and what it looks like. And fortunately, I came to the right two people to help to really make that a reality because sometimes it's hard to figure out exactly which steps need to be there, but what I see is the finished project and how it's going to work and why it's different and how it's going to solve the problems that we have.
Well, tell us about your collaborators because you put together quite a team. I'm an advisor. I'm not
Yes,
sure what
yes, you are.
I'm not sure what value that brings beyond I like to
Oh,
tweet,
it brings so much value. You
but
and
tell us about the team, the core technology team, the technologists you brought together.
So I have two partners, and one of them, Bob Schiff. He's really got a lot of the background in terms of development, and also he's got quite a few connections into that the VC world. And then our other partner, Ken and his team were able to really build out what this solution is and pretty quickly too because when I would come up with these types of solutions for the DIA, I had teams of people and
Hmm.
some of the best engineers in the world working on these, and it was incredible that a small team we were able to do this, and that Ken and his team were able to take this and really turn it into something, making
Yeah, that's
real.
super exciting. I guess
Mhm.
you can't talk about real customers because they don't want to be talked about. But what are some of the use cases or maybe industries or early adopters that you're seeing with Dark Kryptonite?
What's interesting is some of the earliest adopters that we're finding are actually media companies,
Hmm.
like big news organizations that have sources or they have files that they don't want leaked. So that's been a big. We've gotten a lot of interest, and we've got some clients in that arena. The other big area that we're personally targeting is healthcare, because healthcare needs it, and also fintech. There are so many use cases for this, even satellite comms, because you can secure a lot of things in space, but you still have the cyber component of the ground stations. And if you're
Mhm.
utilizing Dark Cryptonite, it removes that cybersecurity threat. And
Well,
what,
I hope Alon's listening because he would love the idea of
oh,
dark kryptonite.
my
And
favorite thing
he,
about it, my favorite thing about it is that it is compliant with every standard. We do not do cybersecurity awareness training, but we could. But other than
Mhm.
that, we are compliant with every single standard. And what's even cooler than that is you can take a legacy system that is not compliant with anything in the world ever and never will be, and put it into Dark Kryptonite, and it is now compliant. And
that's an
compliance
amazing
is
that's an
huge
amazing
right now.
approach.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, there are banks being fined billions of dollars for using non-compliant messaging and collaboration tools and Skype and WhatsApp and who knows what else. So I
Right.
totally hear you there. Well, let me ask you, got RSA this week, the big cybersecurity event in the industry. And the problem with a challenging technology is there's a status quo that doesn't want to change. I mean, you have some banks with what, like 30, 40 different security vendors in their network.
Yep.
There's a lot invested in that status quo. People bet their careers on different products and
Right.
services. That's not going to be received too well by the existing uh, powers
Maybe.
that be.
I mean, yes and no. Um,
Okay.
because there are some things that, don't really need to have that extreme level of security. And those types of things will run on the internet. And frankly, there's more of that traffic than there is of traffic that just
I
really
see.
cannot be found. So I like to think about it as working in tandem or parallel to the traditional internet. So it's not saying get rid of every other tool that you're using, but maybe your board members and your executives, or the most secure of your documents, this is where you use it. So it
No,
sort of
I love that. That makes so much sense. Yes. I mean, my typical messaging or Slack messages aren't really that important, frankly. Although end-to-end encryption itself is controversial, you're seeing a lot of governments move against it. We're seeing new legislation emerging. There's going to be a backlash, right, against tools
yes,
like yours and true end-to-end encryption
right.
in general. With the threats of you know terrorists and child abusers and gosh knows what else. Um, but
See,
how do you answer that concern?
here's how we answer that. One of the first things that I said to my two partners is that Dark Kryptonite will never be used as a social media platform because
Hmm.
of that very reason. And the last thing that I would have ever want to create is something where people are sharing, bad, exploitation of children pictures, or
Hmm.
things along those lines. So that sort of helps with that issue, because it's not going to be used as a social media
So
platform.
it's not open source. You're not just putting it out there into the world and
Nope.
anyone can grab the code. Okay, well that sort of addresses one of the main challenges. So what are you looking forward to over the next weeks and months? You have so much on your
Right.
agenda, so many potential clients. What are you focused on?
We're really focusing on getting those clients, and really building out the other portions of the product to make it even better. So I'm really excited about it. And I'm so excited. We have such an incredible board of people like you, Irma. I mean, it's great. And frankly, I can't wait to interview you.
Oh, I'm boring. I have nothing to
You are
add.
not
But one
boring.
thing has caught caught my attention and is your background there. I can't really see it. Are those coins or medallions or medals or what
Yeah,
is going on there?
those are coins in the DoD. You get coins for like one of those is SOCOM, one of those is DIA.
Ah,
They're like trading coins, and there's a whole thing with them too where you can flip them, and whoever doesn't do it the first or something like that. I don't exactly remember, but it has to do with who buys drinks. That part I
okay.
remember.
Oh, that's so fun. Well, thanks for what you do. This is such an important tech mission, really a mission for good, which is wonderful to support. And keep up the good work. So,
Thank you
catch
so
you on
much.
the usual places, Twitter and LinkedIn, where we hang out all day.
Yes,
And look forward to folks checking out Dark Cryptonite. The link is in the post. So, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. Also, if you're at RSA, have a great week. Tweet at us with any news or updates at the show.
thank you. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Tyler. Bye bye. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.